Derick Alemena. While the jury found co-defendant Max Harris not guilty on all charges, it could not reach a unanimous decision on Derick Alemena. 10 jurors were leaning to convict, but 2 others were not, leading to the hung jury. Now, prosecutors talked to the jurors as well as victims' family members for feedback on whether or not to retry Almena.
While he's happy, in a sense, to be unconvicted, he's very unhappy when he thinks about what happened.
Our hearts have been with the families of the 36 victims that died in this unspeakable tragedy. That still remains our focus.
Max Harris was released from Santa Rita Jail in Dublin just last night. This afternoon, Almena remains in jail. His next court appearance is scheduled for October 4th.
Deputies say they talked with Max Harris for about 15 minutes before releasing him. Authorities told us Harris was quiet and reflective as they drove him to an undisclosed location. Deputies added that Harris did not want to make any public statements at the time. Almena's attorney, Tony Serra, said he won't stop until his client is out of jail as well.
My position very strongly right now is try your best to get him bail, set a jury trial, as quickly as I am available, and in the interim, prepare for trial.
Sarah says he fears a second trial, if there is one, won't begin until next March, and that his client will remain behind bars during that time. Sarah also says he believes a second trial will either end in another hung jury or an acquittal. It was an emotional end to the trial for the families of the 36 people who died in the ghost ship warehouse fire. KTVU's Alyssa Harrington has more on what is next for them.
I'm in shock. I'm in disbelief. I can't believe it. I don't know what to think.
Raw emotions outside an Oakland courthouse following the acquittal of Max Harris and a mistrial for Derick Alemena. Both men were facing up to 39 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter of 36 people in the ghost ship warehouse fire. Instead, Harris walked free. Almena is scheduled back in court on October 4th to prepare for a possible new trial.
The only thing I was hoping for was that none of this ever happened. There's no, I don't know. I just want my son back.
These are the faces of those who were killed. Many were artists, musicians, and students. Their loved ones have spent countless hours in the courtroom, traveling back and forth to make important hearings. A judge threw out a plea deal that would have given Harris 6 years in jail, Almena 9. Some families pushed for this trial, hoping it would give a stiffer punishment to those they felt were responsible, as well as answer many of their pressing questions about what happened that night.
There's a man walking out there that should be in jail right now. He was willing to take a plea deal for 6 years. Okay, you tell me if that's a not guilty person. Come on.
Victims' families are still moving forward with a civil suit, hoping to hold the city of Oakland, the landlords, and PG&E accountable as well. Alyssa Harrington, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, we're joined now by 2 of Max Harris's attorneys, Curtis Briggs right next to me, as well as Tyler Smith. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it. First night out of jail for your client in quite some time. What can you tell us about his emotions right now, where he's at?
He's local. He's staying with friends. He's staying with some people that testified on his behalf. We went and saw him last night. Tyler and I did. We brought over about 10 pounds of vegan food, watched him eat his first meal, take his first bite since it's been 29 months.
Tyler, is he in shock? I mean, what's he telling you about the whole experience here of being acquitted?
It's obviously a huge sense of relief for him. It's just pure joy and happiness, and he's just trying to soak in everything. Obviously, always the first thing out of his mouth is his sense of sadness for the families. He always puts that first. So while I say that it's joy, it's relief, but there's a deep sadness that he has, and I think he's always going to have with him for what these families have suffered.
He and you were prepared to take a plea deal that would have meant he'd spend 6 years behind bars. He's a free man today. The indication that a plea deal had been agreed to, does it show some agreement of responsibility in what happened? Many of the families say he got off way too easy.
We asked Max to consider that plea deal for several reasons. One, he would be out about right now anyways under that plea deal. It was practical under the circumstances, with all of the media against him, with all the families, the victims' families. It seemed like a prudent idea as far as just getting him out of jail. But primarily, we didn't think that it would be proper to put the families through a trial. We didn't understand when we advised Max to take that plea deal that the families would be against it. We thought the families would see it as a source of relief, that he would be taking responsibility to some extent and that he would be accepting punishment.
So does he still take responsibility today as an acquitted man?
He's always taken the same amount of responsibility. He always wishes he could have done something differently. He always wishes that he would have gone in and tried something and tried to do something different. He doesn't know what that is. He did save lives that night. He tried his best. But in hindsight, of course, he would have done things differently. He's one of the few people in this entire scenario who looked the jury in the face and said, look, I would have done something differently if I could have. And, not one firefighter did, not one police officer did, not one fire marshal did. Everybody sat there and tried to say, hey, we did everything perfectly, but 36 people died. And Max is the only person that was actually honest and human about that.
You guys presented a number of arguments. Tyler, is there one particular argument that you think persuade those jurors?
I think, well, there's not one particular one that I think persuade the jurors, but I think the strongest argument that we had was the fact that would a reasonable person have recognized that this posed such a great risk to human life. And the fact that there were so many people living there, 25 people were living there at the time. The fact that there were so many people that attended the party, in order to show that Max was unreasonable in believing that the place was safe, the DA would have to show that all of the people that were living there were unreasonable, that all of the people that attended that party were unreasonable in being there. And the fact that we had multiple visits by various city officials, fire department, police, 33 separate visits, they all went in there and essentially gave it their thumbs up, stamp of approval. Didn't tell Derick, that he needs to lessen the fire load in there.
In the courtroom, you're on one side, right? The district attorney's office is on the other side, the prosecution. Is there one instance during the trial where you thought they made a mistake, that the prosecutor made a mistake, that there was an opening that you took advantage of?
Well, right away in the opening statement, the prosecutors mispronounced some victims' names. And to me, that was symbolic of their fundamental lack of understanding of the complexities of this case. Their mistake went all the way back to making their charging decision. They emotionally reacted to 36 deaths, and in that emotional reaction, immediately they decided to pursue Max Harris and Derick Alemena, and they didn't step back and look at it objectively as investigators should, and that's why they got the wrong result.
Do you think that your client was helped by being on trial with Derick Alemena?
Yes.
You think if he was tried separately, we might have a different outcome for Max Harris?
We believe that Max Harris had a better opportunity to succeed at trial with the entire context. So we were always pushing for as many people that were involved to be in that courtroom as possible. We wanted Derick Alemena in that courtroom. We wanted the owners in that courtroom. We wanted the firefighters in that courtroom. We wanted the police in that courtroom. We wanted the jury to hear the whole story, and we felt that the closer we can get to the whole story, the sooner we could get Max out.
12 jurors came together and said, your client is not guilty. 10 of those same jurors said Derick Alemena is guilty. 2 of them did not. What's your reaction to the hung jury?
I mean, we understand why reasonable people might disagree. I think that in the future, the problem of trying Mr. Almena alone is going to be that the entire focus is going to be on him. So the odds that he will be acquitted are much higher. With Max Harris there, Max Harris definitely looked like the good guy, and the prosecution was able to deflect a lot of blame onto Derick Alemena, and they got 10 jurors to see it a certain way. Well, if it's just Derick Alemena on trial, then they're going to have to convince 12 jurors that Derick Alemena was wrong, and we just don't think they can do that under these facts. The owners aren't in this prosecution. Firefighters, fire marshals, city officials haven't taken any responsibility. Juries are going to see through that.
It's hard to say. The removal of those 3 jurors, Tyler, do you think it benefited Max?
I think ultimately, obviously, it must have been.
I mean, because were there a day 9 or 10 when that happened, of full deliberations? I mean, at that point, what were you thinking?
I think one of the jurors that was removed was probably leaning towards a guilty verdict. I think 2 of them were leaning towards not guilty. I think that the one that we felt was leaning towards guilty had a very strong voice in the deliberation room. Not sure about the other 2 and how strong their voice was, but I think it was ultimately a good thing for us to have the alternative.
You agree, Kurt?
To have the alternate jurors replace them.
I'll just defer to Mr. Smith's comments on that.
Okay.
It was well said.
You didn't put Max Harris on the stand. Why?
No, we did.
I'm sorry, you did.
We
You did. Do you expect him to go back into the fold of Oakland?
We don't know. You know, a part of the reason that we interfaced with the public and the media a lot is, number one, we got a lot of support worldwide for Max. We had a lot of letters, we had a lot of people reaching out, we had people that were willing to make small donations on his behalf. Part of the reason we maintain engagement with the press and the media was because we were looking beyond this trial to try to make sure that he has an opportunity to re-enter in any community he wants. And we do believe that he's been well received so far with a lot of support. But, you know, this
a lot of virtual support.
And direct support, people reaching out, you know, on the phone.
But he's not back in the Fruitvale
offering
district.
services. Yeah, we're not making any comments exactly where he's at because we want to protect his privacy at this point, and we want to protect the privacy of the people he's with. We don't want 100 news cameras out there right now. He needs to relax.
Does he expect to live a full and free life? No name changing, no hiding in that sense?
No, I think that he's in some ways grown a lot from this experience, and he's very humbled by it. I don't think he wishes to run from anything. I think he's searching for a way that he can move forward and contribute somehow, and somehow make this world a better place given the circumstances and experiences that he's, you know, endured the last few years. He's never going to forget the people that passed away in that fire. Regardless of what the victims' families think, he's never going to forget their pain, and he's going to honor the memories of those victims in any way he can.
Did Max and Derick have any conversation before he was released from jail, do you know, and what was said?
Not that
Whether it's at the courthouse or at the jail?
I'm sure they did, but I'm not aware of it.
Does the district attorney retry Derick Alemena?
I think it's a mistake. I think they're posturing. The best thing they could do right now is posture that they're going to try the case to try to get Mr. Alemena to plea. You know, I guarantee you there's things that we did not have an opportunity to do in our investigation that could absolutely be done in a couple months and make a huge difference for Derick Alemena, and they would be unwise to try him.
Do you understand why this can be a very unsatisfying verdict for the families of the 36 people who died and for many in the community as a whole?
Yes, it's unsatisfying to everybody, including us. You know, here my client was shown to be innocent, but he spent 29 months in isolation at Santa Rita Jail. So that's not justice. You know, it's not justice to get an innocent man out of jail after 29 months. That's a disservice.
But there are people out there who say he should be spending more months, more years behind bars.
Yeah, we understand that. We understand that. We respect their opinion. People have been through a lot on this case. These victims' families, I can't even pretend to understand. You know, I lost my daughter, medical circumstances as an infant, and I went all of my life thinking it was the worst thing that could happen to a parent. But you know what? I learned through this case, it could be worse. These victims' families are enduring the worst type of tragedy. It's ongoing. Every step of the process has inflicted more pain. I can't even begin to imagine what they're going for. I respect their opinion. I respect how they feel, and I hope that there's something that we can do to make it better.
All right, Tyler Smith, Curtis Briggs, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.